Hello, everyone. My name is Keisha, and today I'll be walking you through my data exploration of the Nashville Housing dataset. I used IBM Cognos Analytics to explore data and created several visualizations to better understand the patterns and relationships in the Nashville housing market. Here's a quick overview of what I'll be covering today. I'll start with a high level summary of the dataset, then move on to the problems it can help solve. From there, we'll look at the fields, focus on the target variable, and review 5 visualizations that I discovered or created. I'll also touch on outliers, missing data, and insights from the Cognos Assistant before wrapping up. This dataset organizes records of housing transactions in Nashville. It provides a structured mix of field types such as categorical fields that identify neighborhood zones and land use classifications, numerical fields that quantify things like sales price, acreage, and assessed value, and a temporal field that captures the year each property was built. I wanted to focus on fields most likely to influence sales price, such as total value, land value, building value, and other property details like bedrooms, bathrooms, and location identifiers. These fields laid the foundation for my analysis and helped me explore how different factors drive pricing trends across the Nashville area. The key question that I explored was, what influences home sale prices in Nashville? That became the foundation of my problem statement. From there, this dataset opens up multiple decision making pathways. For example, real estate agents and sellers can use this data to guide pricing strategies. Investors can assess risk and potential return by analyzing trends in appraised value versus sales price. And city planners might use this data information to identify where development or policy attention is most needed. Before digging into relationships or trends, I started by reviewing the structure of the dataset. All of these fields capture different aspects of the residential property transactions in Nashville. This includes location, sales price, tax details, and physical characteristics like square footage and number of bedrooms. I decided to focus on sales price as my target variable because it's the metric that drives most real estate decisions. When I explored what features had the strongest relationships with sale price, Cognos showed that total value had a strength of 37%, land value had a strength of 32%, and building value had a strength of 31%. After mapping out the structure of the dataset and narrowing my focus to sales price as the target variable, I was curious about how everyday features like bedrooms, bathrooms, and overall property value affected what homes actually sold for. These are the kinds of details buyers and sellers care about most. Cognos calculated the average sales price across the dataset, which came to about 327,000. That gave me a baseline to work from as I explored patterns and relationships and outliers in the data. This is the first histogram that I created using the dashboard to get a broad sense of how home sales are distributed across price points in Nashville. Most homes sold for under 500,000 with a heavy concentration between 100,000 and 400,000. But on the far right, you'll notice a long trail of luxury properties. Some of them even sold for well over $2 million. These high-end outliers push the overall average upward and skew the full picture, which is why I created a filtered version of this chart to better highlight what the typical market looks like. This is another histogram that I created in the dashboard, but this time I used a filter to focus only on homes that sold for under $1 million. I made this version to clean up the view and make the story more relatable to the typical buyer. With the high-end outliers removed, you can clearly see that most homes were sold between 100,000 and 400,000. That tight cluster gives us a much better feel for where the majority of activity is happening. This also helps us get closer to the national average home price, which is currently around $327,000 in Nashville. This makes it much easier to compare Nashville's local market to what buyers and sellers might expect more broadly. When I first built this scatter plot in the dashboard, I dropped everything in it. There was no filters, it was just raw data. And yeah, it got real messy really fast. You can definitely see a general upward trend here that properties with higher total value usually sell for more. But the chart is packed with so many points and extreme outliers that the pattern kind of gets drowned out. It's just too dense to be helpful. I realized pretty quickly that if I wanted to actually understand the relationship, I needed to clean this up. To clean up the data, I applied a filter to focus on properties that sold for under 400,000 since it makes up most of Nashville's housing market. Right away, the trend became much clearer, and you can still see that positive correlation between total value and sales price, but now it's just readable. The clutter is gone, and we're looking at a much more realistic picture of what's actually happening in the core of the market. This chart shows the relationship between sales price and bedroom count. We see that once you hit 5 bedrooms, the price climbs significantly, and in the 10 and 11 bedroom homes really spike the average. These are rare but powerful outliers. There's also a small category labeled no value, which means that the bedroom count wasn't recorded. These are considered missing data. On the lower end, homes with 0 to 2 bedrooms had the lowest average in sales price, which kind of fits with the expectations for smaller or entry level properties. While initially exploring the dataset, I created a side by side comparison and turned on the insights to see what would better stand out when comparing full bathrooms to half bathrooms. I noticed that both charts included a small category labeled no value again, which represents homes where the number of full or half bathrooms wasn't recorded. These are, once again, missing values. In chart A, we're looking at full bathrooms. Properties with 4 or more full bathrooms clearly drive up the average sales price. A small number of luxury homes create a sharp spike, pulling the average up. These are statistical outliers, but they still provide valuable insight into high end listings. In chart B, we see sales price based on half baths. The standout here is the category with 3 half baths, which shows the highest average price in this set. That combo is rare and likely tied to custom or premium homes. Most homes fall into the 0 or 2 half bath range and are well below the national overall or the Nashville overall average. I use the Cognos Assistant tool to explore key drivers of sales price using natural language. I ask questions like, what influences sales price? And what are the top insights? I did run into one issue when using the assistant. When I asked about relationships between fields, it initially said it couldn't find any. But once I clicked on show influencers, the result came through just fine. So the tool has a little bit of a learning curve. The assistant identified several major drivers of price: land value, full bath count, building value, and tax districts. These lined up what I'd already been finding in my other charts. It also showed me some interesting historical patterns. For example, homes built in 1832 had the highest average price at nearly $1.6 million, which is almost likely a small group of preserved historic or luxury properties. I wouldn't have noticed that detail without scanning while I was scanning the raw data. So the assistant was really helpful in surfacing unique patterns that could be useful to investors or real estate researchers. To wrap things up, this project helped me better understand what's driving home sale prices in Nashville. I found that total value, land value, and building value had the strongest impact on sales price, but property features like bedrooms, bathrooms, and even missing values played a role too. Using Cognos visualization tools and insights, features gave me a clearer picture of outliers and helped me clean up noisy data for better analysis. If I were to keep going, I'd want to explore trends over time, such as how home prices have shifted by year, and maybe digging into geographic clusters to see how neighborhood factors affect value. Overall, this process gave me a solid foundation in data exploration and helped me sharpen my eye for trends, gaps, and opportunities in real world housing data. We journeyed from raw data to real world insights, and thank you for diving in with me using IBM Cognos. Bye.